Sorry, Chris, you're gonna have to restart it. We weren't actually going.
Oh, you can't get in?
No. Now we're live. So you could just start where you started and just go for it.
We have a week off.
That was a test at the beginning.
It's the bag. You kissed it.
All right. Hello, everyone. This is our first ASA Live of this week. We waited till Friday to have a special episode. Welcome, Tommy.
Thank you for inviting me on to your incredible platform here on ASA. I think the guy actually had to come defend himself after Zach a couple weeks ago. He was getting shots. Yeah, I wasn't able to tune in live to that one, so I watched it on after the fact. I couldn't defend myself on live TV, but
yeah, sorry about that.
He's gonna have to do some of that extra fitness he referenced to when we get back. I'd love to see that.
Staff fitness challenge, maybe.
He was a quality goalkeeper. Is actually played in the ASA futsal league. You know, did pretty well actually. Yeah, tip my cap.
All right. Well, welcome today. We're going to cover all kinds of things. So we can go ahead and, I guess, get started. First, though, before we get into it, how's everybody doing? You feeling good? How's your time at home today? You had an okay week? Everybody okay?
Katie, things have been great on my end. I did early this morning, after the early showers, I got to check my garden. And the collards are doing fantastic. Very green. Soil is very moist.
Wow.
Little outside of soccer, got in to take care of the garden this morning.
Love it. Some personal development, some personal growth. That's perfect. Tommy?
I was advised by our ASA gardener and co-host of ASA Live, Katie Brooks, to wait to plant because the soil temperatures were still a little too low.
Yeah.
So I've been just, churning the soil, giving it a little compost. But no, yeah, go on. Got to get out to Virginia. We have the good soil out here. Yeah, you got a couple degrees warmer down south there, outside of the district. But no, it's seriously, we're doing well. Jana, my roommate and co-working partner, are managing well. Trying to take some calls on walks to stay active, but very, very busy as well. Lot of stuff to make sure ASA and all of our players are going to be in a good spot now, and when we're ready to return. So,
well, that's a good lead into what I wanted to ask you first, because I know it's taken a lot of calls and been a decent amount of collaboration. Tell us a little bit about DMV United, which is an initiative that you and a couple other club leaders helped launch to sort of organize thought and, idea sharing among the clubs in this region.
Yeah, it's been a really awesome initiative that kind of formed very organically, and that contrary to maybe what many think, obviously youth clubs compete on the field, very, very hard on the field against each other, which creates a natural kind of assumption that everybody's working against each other all the time. And the reality is that while we compete on the field, a of the club leaders, program directors, coaching staffs share a lot of ideas because ultimately we all share very, very similar missions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's been, DMV United basically was just, creating a formal communication platform so that all club directors, large, small, could work together and
Mm-hmm.
share ideas, information during this, incredibly challenging time
How
for
many
our
clubs?
organizations.
How many clubs are a part of it?
Believe it's almost 100 clubs now, just and it's DMV United. So, we tried to, stay within a geographical platform. Obviously, we've had a lot of interest from outside the area and doesn't mean we don't share, but I think there's just some commonalities within the DC area that
Mm-hmm.
link us and allow us to, we have teams that play in similar leagues and platforms that make it a little easier to share ideas that are specific.
I feel like that's a great initiative. Just from hearing it, at times I feel like from the outside looking in, you might imagine that a lot of clubs are sort of battling each other. But it's been, I think, neat to see the clubs come together during this time, which is a very unique time for everybody. I mean, talk about that maybe a little bit, Coach. Like, have you seen clubs sort of be able to come even more together ultimately to try to because this is something that we haven't dealt with before, to ultimately try to come out on the other side in a way that we can support the players as best as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know club directors who may not have known each other at all. I mean, again, you can now kind of put a face to the name. We have Zoom calls where everybody's jumping on and we're connecting in a way that typically is really hard to do,
Mm-hmm.
because you know the soccer just executing soccer programming is incredibly time consuming, because unlike many organizations or businesses, there's an incredible administrative component, often during the day and in normal traditional work hours. But all of the programming, is nights and weekends.
Mm-hmm.
So just finding a time that works for just a small group of club directors, when they're so focused internally, it is difficult. But that's kind of some of the silver lining now is that everybody, is the programming. Unfortunately, is happening in a different way right now. So people are kind of organizing their time and their workflow a little bit differently, but they are all making time right now when there's not really a playbook or best practices for something like this, prioritizing that. So yeah, I think on the back end of this, when we do return to the fields, my hope is that just developing relationships with
Mm-hmm.
other clubs will allow people to communicate more openly and freely, which ultimately will result in a healthier um, you know environment within the DMV.
That's awesome. I mean, I from that I heard you mention, just kind of switching gears a little bit. I heard you mention connecting with different directors could typically be a little bit harder to do. I imagine that might be the same case with our own or your own internal staff at ASA. I mean, could you talk a little bit about how ASA staff and even coaches, but also the front office staff has been, how you've been able to stay connected with them, and how the staff has been working to connect with each other during this time?
Yeah, it's been incredible, right? I think the first week we spent, just adjusting workflows. Many of our staff have a significant amount of time that they spend out on the field. This is many people may not even know our organizational structure. We have, um, 12 full-time administrators, right? Which means that they have a full load of work that doesn't include any coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and many of those, the majority, opt in to coach on top of that, which is incredible, right? Obviously, many of our staff coaches also go to work every day, and they coach after work, which just kind of shows the incredible challenge. But what we've done is been able to kind of take on, first organizing ourselves so that we could support players and adjust the way that we do that. And then from an administrative standpoint, organize ourselves so we can communicate. I mean, typically in our office, for anybody who's been there, it's tight quarters. We have an open office setting where
it's not tighter than it used to be. Good Lord.
That's very true. We had 6 people within maybe 15 by 15, 300 square foot room for many years. But yeah, I think that's been the nature of how our staff has worked, right? Which is a collaborative environment. So I think it's been a bit of a shock to all of our systems to, how do we continue to collaborate in the ways that we do so well, typically on a daily basis, and do so effectively. So I think we've always used, different technologies, whether it be shared drives and live documents. But we've also now kind of introduced, Zoom and Google Hangouts, and, being able to do task management so that we can all, do the best we can to make really educated and strategic decisions with program management right now.
Agree. Charlie Herman commented that tight office is a good problem to have. That is quite true.
Yeah. Well, we've also gone from a couple 2 to 3 staff to sometimes we have up to 15 staff members in the office. So it's been a sign of our ability to better support the community in a more diverse set of ways. So, but yeah, we definitely we're definitely very familiar. We know what people are having for lunch every day. Let's just say that.
Yes.
Some's better than others. I mean, look around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just on that though, Katie, if you don't mind me adding on here too, just in terms of, obviously that's the office staff, and we all know that we have quite a large number of coaches who are involved across various programs. Maybe share a little bit about the different ways you've seen and some of our coaches involved with the players and parents during this time to stay connected. Obviously, it's extremely different circumstances without being to be out on the field, every night of the week. But what have you seen that's been sort of different ways that coaches have been able to interact and stay connected with our players and families?
Yeah, it's been really impressive. I think, we obviously have a very in-depth and well thought out curriculum that our coaches typically follow, right, on the field. I mean, you two both know as coaches, and obviously in your roles, your leadership roles, and obviously I think that with our different program directors at this time, from Jenny in the academy, Griggs in junior academy, Will with futsal, across the board, our leaders have provided, tons of examples of and opportunities, for remote support. And some of the most kind of, impressive ways that people jumped right in was to first provide the platform, right? I mean, jumping on, and Pete, our rec director, jumps on, and despite that league being a wide range of age groups and comfort level within the great game, providing opportunities for Zoom sessions, all mastery sessions. There's fitness sessions, where Tim, has jumped on and done live streams and provided live feedback, as if they were, he was working with them in person, to developing, individual development plans for players that their action items are things that they can do individually or collaborate. I mean, I think assigning small group tasks for the players to work together remotely is something very cool that I've seen. Whether it be analyzing games that they've played in and pulling out moments that their coaches challenge them to watching professional games and pulling out concepts that they recognize from their training.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think on top of that, I mean, some of the supplementary support, over the next few weeks, we're going to be communicating, rolling out how many of our seniors are going on to college, right? We've got Glenn, who's been working with all of our high school age coaches to not only kind of close or kind of finalize the opportunities that players have been exploring this whole year, especially our seniors, but educating our juniors and sophomores and freshmen on what they can be doing now that sometimes they actually didn't have the time to do, right?
Yeah.
Editing videos, developing player profile sheets, contacting their school counselors, the college coaches. And I think right now ASA has 12 players who are playing varsity soccer, many more that are graduating ASA that are going to college and staying involved in soccer, whether it be through club soccer or have intentions to coach and referee, which is our primary goal. Obviously, varsity soccer is amazing, and again, we'll have a record number of varsity players graduating this year to participate at the collegiate level. But we also are recognizing all of our graduating players.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned the sort of education portion, because I think that's what we're doing here, right? Like with Glenn and with Zach, and trying to bring an educational component that kids might not have had the time to like learn about. And I have to shout out, I know a couple coaches, Mark with the U12 girls, I know Coach Sebastian right now have brought in some contacts and have some professional and or Division I athletes in their Zoom calls answering questions, which I've heard has been really well received and interesting. And it's kind of because the kids are available and the players are available right now. So there are definitely some.
I got to give a shout out to Coach Ricardo yesterday with my own team. He brought a guitar and played a song for us. It doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah. And actually, that's been an amazing thing to see, is that our coaches, first and foremost, have been connecting with the players and their families to make sure they're okay. And I know that the conversations of the first few weeks really had nothing to do with all these things that, soccer specific ways we can continue to develop them.
Yeah.
It really has been incredible to see how our coaches have rallied their team-based communities to support each other, to identify where specific support may be needed. And I mean, just have fun with, I mean, this sucks. I mean, this absolutely sucks for everybody. There's no sugarcoating it. And so I think just recognizing that with the kids, with the parents and coaches, and recognize we're all battling this kind of lifestyle change together and trying to make the best of it was step one. And I really commend all of our staff coaches for really checking in on everybody's mental health and trying to encourage staying active physically, so that all of those kind of outcomes that we seek are checked first.
So on that note, let's transition to ASA programming. I know there's questions. We actually, hold on, I got to read this comment because this is fun. Jenny said she appreciates Coach Grigor leading 50 plus junior academy kids on a rainy afternoon yesterday, outdoor Zoom session. I know it's not the same, but that's U7 and U8. That's wild.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Griggs and many of the coaches have been doing some shifts out there. I feel like potentially the coaching fitness levels are
gonna be high. Yeah, higher.
Yeah.
Coach Pete told me after his rec session today, he felt less out of breath than he did last Friday. So that's good.
I think their demoing skills will be much better when we return to the fields.
Yeah.
One or two less.
All right. So let's talk about ASA programming a little bit. We've sent emails, we've been communicating kind of what our plan is based on our specific programming looking towards the spring. Maybe let's just talk about sort of our thoughts in general with making a call May 4th and then, or early, first week of May, and then we can maybe talk about specific programs if people have questions. But we sort of made the decision in early April to make our final call May 4th. Early May, why is that the magic week?
Yeah. So, obviously like everybody, there's no playbook for this. And I think, we work hand in hand with the, City of Alexandria Health Department, the Parks and Rec Department, the school system. And we really leaned on their guidance through this from a return to play process. Obviously, the governor came out with the state's guidance through June 10th. However, because there was language in there, we were advised to say, hey, there's language that could back this up, to an earlier date, bump this up to an earlier date. So because of the possibility of returning to a modified season, we didn't want to take that off the table right away, which obviously, we're realistic and we're following, the news and see kind of the different models, but we made a decision very early to, to stay in line with that guidance. So what we did is we kind of looked at what the possibilities were. Should it be safe to return by certain dates? And looked at the viability of spring programming. And, because we host a wide range of programs, it's not a one size fits all. But we did say, we're going to circle back because on this date, after that point, it's going to be very hard to host meaningful and high quality programming.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thought process behind, why that date essentially, it just becomes very difficult to host quality programming if we don't know by that date.
Yeah.
So do you anticipate, just for our families out there, that first week of May we should have in terms of the communication from the club, will all programs be decided that first week, or will some maybe take a little bit longer than others? What is that May 4th date going to be the date that everybody should expect to hear from us, or could it be a little bit,
longer? Yes. So we're going to make a decision that week. And obviously, whatever decision we have to make involves a ton of administrative follow-up, right? One of the things our staff has been working on this time is exactly how do we execute something that's never been done, right?
Yeah.
And one of the commitments we've made was to be fair and equitable should we not be able to offer the programming that we all hoped to deliver, which means that should we during that week have to make the difficult decision to cancel any modified spring programming, we will be communicating with everybody based on the program they registered for, how we're going to process whether it be a refund, a credit, plan. so there's that. There is the one kind of nuance there in that our academy program, um, we don't run those leagues. We have to kind of rely on the league decisions as to how they're modifying their spring schedule. Some of those leagues, in fact, I'd say nearly all the leagues have proposed a modified league schedule from June, as late as mid June to mid July. A 4-week, 8-game schedule.
Mm-hmm.
In that time period, we don't want to, cancel the spring academy season before, the leagues kind of make a decision, so that none of our families or players don't have an opportunity that's out there.
Yeah.
All that said, we are ready to, whatever situation, we, kind of comes to play here over the next few weeks. We're ready to move forward with the plan, right? In terms of recognizing fairly this season, and then we are in many ways more ready than ever to press start again. When we come back, because all the time that we may have been supporting current programming, we've been planning a ton and organizing so that we can return to play stronger than ever.
Yeah, I think that's an important part, the being ready, that like I can see, or we all can see going on behind the scenes. Is there, like, each program has a number of contingency plans. If we're allowed to play in June, if we're allowed to start May 15th, if we're allowed to play in groups of 10. Yeah. One person, somebody just asked, which is related, and thanks for the reminder, we wanted to touch on this. Thoughts on the academy tryouts and coaching assignments. I'm not sure where we are on that information, but Chris, I guess, or Tommy, what can we share there? Coming soon as well?
Coming soon.
I probably coming soon. So we're diligently working behind the scenes. Obviously, a number of wide array of variables play, but we are definitely working on that. And part of what we want to do is, I think from our end, we're looking at this as, we want to provide some normalcy where we can. So in our mind, we're trying to stay on a similar timeline as we would if this situation wasn't going on. So, this is around the time where we would be, teeing up academy coaching assignments for next year, planning with the annual schedule and those sorts of things for next year, preparing for tryouts and things like that. Obviously, we won't be out on the field for tryouts as we normally would in the same time frame, but we are working through different scenarios that we'll be communicating out soon to our academy program, specifically over the next week or two. And it'll be ongoing communication that you'll be receiving in terms of things that we are and have begun to prepare for, and we'll start sharing that information soon.
Awesome. Also, I guess, for anybody who doesn't know, Chris is our academy director, which is why I posed that question to him. When he's not hosting ASA Live, that is his other job.
Yeah,
he
that'd be great if I could do this all day.
He helps run the academy. Okay, well, another question sort of related, while we're on the topic of the academy and knowing that we are working closely with NCSL and CCL and the different leagues, as well as, right, we're in constant contact with, at this point, all the other clubs, sort of getting a feel for what, their communities and their parks and rec are letting them do. Just, that was an aggressive lead-in, but at large, let's talk for a second about the Development Academy, and how that folding might change or not change anything regarding ASA teams in our academy.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't aware, the structure, of youth soccer is that U.S. soccer, whose mission is to develop national team players and win a World Cup, it has folded, indefinitely the youth league that they hosted. They've hosted for about 10 years. And, again, its mission was to try to identify, produce national team players. That is the DA. That is a league, Development Academy League, that is no longer, right? Mm-hmm. So those of you who have younger players or have players who are always trying to track, okay, I want to compete at high elite levels, at the most competitive environment. We certainly, as part of our club, want to motivate and encourage all of our players to always want to improve, right, and become a more comfortable, confident, better soccer players. We feel the better you are, the more you're challenged, the more you develop, the more you're going to enjoy the game. The DA, it folding, to kind of get to that, because it's such a talked about topic. Mm-hmm. My opinion, this is my opinion, is that having one less platform will actually allow, even if it's still, right now there's going to be potentially U.S. youth soccer, platforms, and U.S. club soccer. Those are two youth governing bodies that both run their own competitions, whether they be national championships, regional championships, state championships. Some host tournaments, some host other leagues. A lot of the players that were participating in that development academy league are now going to play in one of two of those platforms. Mm-hmm. So in theory, now there will be a higher chance that teams will be able to compete more often with a wider range of players, right? A greater variety, because you're going from 3 to 2.
Yeah.
I think that oftentimes we place a lot of emphasis on leagues, right? And we associate quality of a club in to what league they participate in. Certainly, different leagues provide different standards, right? And to some extent, there may be some truth that you can often associate the quality, some qualities of a club to a league. But at ASA, we've always kind of focused on, providing competitively appropriate environments, mm-hmm. right? We've had teams that play in more introductory, localized leagues, which are very, very appropriate for a large number of participants. And we've also had teams and players that, start in the, extremely localized. Obviously, our rec league is a league, RL.
RL, you heard
RL. Every one of the players at ASA starts in the RL. And they go on and progress at different paces, right? And now we have kids who are participating in all sorts of L's, hopefully with getting as many W's as possible in the L's. But no, in all seriousness, the leagues really do provide, they put in a lot of work, right? The leagues do to ensure quality competition. ASA has been fortunate to participate in, some incredible leagues, and we will continue to do so next year. We had, players participating in, the national championship series. We've had, some of our players play against MLS clubs. We had our O8s went up to Philly and played Red Bull, and NYCFC and Philly Union, and did really well. So we're gonna, that was competitively appropriate for them. So we went out and found that platform for them. So I think the landscape as a whole will obviously change a lot, right? Teams are shifting leagues, they're going into different competitive platforms. My hope, and something that is important, in terms of our values, is that clubs will focus on competing and being more open to finding competitively appropriate games that are closer to them geographically. That just makes it way easier to support players and spend less time driving and more time playing. Really.
Yeah, and there are some leagues that I think leagues are starting to take that into account more and more. I know there was a question about the recent announcements by USYS, but I mean, part of that too is an initiative by USYS to sort of create a more regionally based league for their national league competition, which obviously required a lot of resources, particularly for families, to travel to these events. And I know that they've heard. To be fair, I mean, we've called and had discussions with USYS before, about the impact that the travel can have on some of our families. And I think now you're seeing, them in particular, but with these regionally based leagues, there's so many teams in this area, that on a competitive level, to that sense, you can find the competition that you need, within 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think this is like again, there's a lot of talk, right, just within youth soccer about the most elite level, right? And so much time and energy is focused on that. I mean, our coaches, and credit to our team, has always focused on the process and the teaching more so than who we're playing against and in what competition. And I think that has shown that, hey, like, as we stick to our values there and we continue to develop players within our system, naturally they've graduated into higher levels of competition, to the point now where we have players competing at every level of competition. And to that note, USU Soccer, mentioned that there's US Club Soccer and USU Soccer. We've had players and teams participate in both platforms. We're not necessarily, we're focused on ASA, right? We're focused on the players that we support within our community, and we are open always to, exploring the various opportunities that those two platforms provide. I mean, that's a diplomatic response. I think to get right to the nuts and bolts, though, we are in conversations with leagues and clubs who want to play against Alexandria teams.
Yeah.
Whether that's NCSL, CCL, NPL, you know what I mean? There's a lot of really good league directors that are doing incredible work. Like, I have to say that, like, they're all trying their best to provide platforms for quality games. And ASA's players, I mean, I think one of the biggest questions we get is like, well, what about the exposure? Some leagues offer more exposure than others. And I think that's been something that is probably the most kind of the biggest selling point to some of the leagues that require more travel, right? Is, hey, if you can consolidate the players into a league that supports only the best of the best, it's easier for college coaches, national team scouts to identify and then recruit those players into their platforms. But I think if you talk to any college coach, and I know you guys had Zach on before, there's what, 15 million youth soccer players in the U.S.
Yeah.
Parts of the country are supported by different leagues, and they're supported by different platforms. It helps those coaches obviously to consolidate, but it's not always the best thing for that club and that community to participate in the league. It may be better for them to find a tournament,
Hmm.
where it's, hey,
That's
it's
what
a
Zach
one-off,
mentioned. Yeah.
instead of commit. It just depends on where you are in the country. It depends on what type of club environment you have. Um, and I think that's why it's not like a one size fits all. I mean, I think we would love to everything to just be in one platform, one pyramid,
Hmm.
and I think there's a lot of talk about that. But I think because of the size of our country, the diversity of our country, in that way, I think it just becomes a challenge that it's not one size fits all.
Yeah.
We have to be specific in creating platforms that are best for that community,
Yeah.
and I think that just makes it really hard. But
How do you? What would you say? Maybe 2 to 3 things even that you would just give to a parent. Not even just. I mean, any parent who's participating, particularly on the academy side right now, just because we're on that topic. But I think it can be challenging for families to, especially if they're not in it all the time and have know what's going on with various leagues and things like that all the time, or may not know what is best to look for at a club besides a league, or something along those lines. Like, what are maybe 2 or 3 points that you would give to a parent to help them navigate through what sometimes can be a difficult um, arena to navigate through?
yeah, look, I feel like it's similar to saying like, hey, what school should my child go to? There are some schools out there that are very small. There's some, whether it's private or public school. I feel like most soccer clubs are a hybrid of a private and public school, right?
Hmm.
Usually, hopefully, open to all, right? And but at the same time, are saying, hey, we have control over, uh, hey, what all the different inputs that we can apply to this educational environment. So at ASA, I mean, we've really focused on trying to say, hey, we are a school of soccer and much more than that, right? When you come in, you don't just have professional coach or a volunteer coach. You don't just have these basic inputs. You have more than that. But I mean, I think from the academy side, right? Um, like I said, there are so many clubs just within our area that are doing incredible things, right? I mean, it's been 15 years now since coaching at DeMatha and DC United, and up in SAC in Maryland, and so I've been in this area for 15 years. There are incredible people doing things, and so I feel like when people say, oh, like, well, what club? Um, I think at the end of the day, the club infrastructure, um, and the support that they provide, it really kind of boils down to your child and what support they need, and then ultimately, who's their coach? I mean, you can go to the best school, you could go to, Harvard or Princeton, and you get into a class and you don't connect with that professor at all. And their teaching style is completely different than what you need. And that doesn't help you. You may not pick up, that information. You may not connect with them. So at the end of the day, it's really hard, right? Because you may go into a club that traditionally has, incredible reputation for developing players, and then your child doesn't really connect with that coach. And that doesn't mean it's the club's fault. It may not even mean it's the coach's fault. There just might not have been a connection there.
Hmm.
So I think at the end of the day, parents, I personal, I have nephews that play, and my brother-in-law asked me, how do I? They're not in this DMV area, but how do I pick the best club in Atlanta? And it ended up being that one of them went to the most established competitive clubs because that club was going to offer a more structured curriculum. The coaches were, much more kind of, pushing towards certain, concepts that would be applied in the game. And then the other one, they played in similar leagues, but it was much more, free spirited, right? And and that was best for that kid. He
Yeah.
wasn't responding to the more structured environment.
Yeah.
And
Are you talking about your nephew or Jay?
both hand in hand there.
Um,
I don't know. I mean, is there anything else? I mean, obviously, I think that like it's a school, right? And our goal is to provide the like most comprehensive support of each player, and regardless of the program.
yeah.
Obviously, in our academy program, that is the most comprehensive possible support we could offer a child. And we try to think through every possible input that can help that player achieve their goals.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to be on the national team, they can play an ASA and be selected for the national team. We have some of the best coaches in the country that will provide incredible support. We connect with DC United, we connect with national team scouts, whatever it may be. It's up to the player, though, at the end of the day, to take advantage of the learning experience, push themselves to achieve it, and the opportunity will be there at the end of the day.
That was a good question, Chris. Thanks for following up with that. So we're coming up on the 50-minute mark. So as we sort of wrap up here, somebody asked, is it realistic to expect any sort of summer competition or too early to tell?
Wow, I would really love to be able to
I know. We
get
hope.
into that. I think, look, at the end of the day, we are remaining extremely optimistic, and I think from organization standpoint, fortunately, we are in a very, very, very healthy position. Right, we've spent many years developing the structure of ASA, investing in the sustainability of the club, so that the minute we are able to return safely to the field in whatever form, individual, small group learning, one team, at a time, we are going to be ready. And fortunately, I know this is an exceptionally challenging time for schools, for businesses, for organizations who aren't able to deliver programming, to remain in place, right? I think and that's something that we have decided that we are going to stay intact. We are going to continue to support players as best we can. We know it doesn't replace on-field programming, but the minute that we're able to return, we're gonna press, and we are going to have everything ready to go, from the facility management to the operations that go behind there, and the risk management, making sure we have all the inputs necessary in place so that coming out to the fields is safe. To the coaches, right, and making sure that whether they're a volunteer or professional coach, they're in a position to move forward immediately. So whether it's July 1st, August, September, I think we're ready. We're going to be here, which is, we're very fortunate to be able to do that. And I think that's kind of the most important thing that we're focused on right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any last thoughts here, Chris? You got anything? Tommy, anything you wanted to add that you want to put out there? Any last questions? Now's the time.
I think we've touched on a lot. I think it's important. I know in the office sometimes mean, a few times we've kind of joked about we sort of wish we could have like a camera or a live stream in the office to kind of see how we work, you know. And I think this kind of gives a little bit of insight to that. I mean, there's a lot of thought that's going on in all the different inputs and scenarios for every level of programming that we have at the club. And I think hopefully some people were able to tune in, both players and families, to understand, you know, even as far as the relationships that we have with various stakeholders, like the city, you know, and you know, like the leagues, you know, in terms of the soccer side of things, different clubs where we're in direct contact with various, you know, soccer leaders on all different levels, recreation, you know, to the DA, to MLS, you know, whatever it is, to US soccer. So I think it's interesting. I hope people are able to see that a little bit and hear that. And to Tommy's point, I mean, because of all those things, we will be prepared to come back very strong when it's safe and we get the go ahead to do it. So I don't know, Coach, if you have anything additional on that, or even too, I think one of the pieces that we didn't really touch on, and maybe we could quickly do it. And Katie, you could chime in here too, but on Spring to Action, I thought that was a fantastic day for us, even though it was a little bit different than it normally is in a lot of ways. But maybe you could share a little bit of information about that too.
Yeah, read my mind there. You know, obviously we talk a lot in ASA about, you know, supporting the community beyond the sport and supporting players, you know, beyond the field, right? And I think one thing that, you know, took a lot of planning, you know, we have our board of directors who have been incredible during this time, a volunteer group of people that, you know, step up and have put an incredible number of hours, you know, to you know, ensure that from a oversight, you know, and sustainability, that our club can make difficult decisions during this time that are in line with our values. And one of those things was saying, hey, our community doesn't, you know, unfortunately, we can't support them in the way that we're best at, right? Which is getting kids active on the field, right? And engaging with them and allowing them to engage with each other in person. We're doing our best, you know, remotely, and doing some incredible things. But, you know, people need food. They need, you know, lodging, you know, the most basic inputs before you can appreciate and enjoy soccer. Our community stepped up last Wednesday and, you know, said, hey, you know, ASA, obviously in our support of access for all and ensuring soccer is available to everybody. I mean, that's, you know, a huge project that we invest a lot in. But we you know, we decided, hey, how can we get help to our families right now? You know, what do they need now? And there are a lot of other organizations within our city that are better aligned to support families. You know, our families and the whole city of Alexandria's families. And so through Spring to Action, Act for Alexandria, our community raised over $15,000 from over 500 unique donors, which was the most in terms of unique donors in the city for, you know, frontline healthcare providers, you know, people that are helping our community, our participants, you know, through this incredibly challenging time. So I continue to be just amazed by how, you know, our leadership, you know, from our staff and, you know, how they've been managing this, and, you know, the strategic direction of ASA, and how, you know, we continue to say, hey, what do people need now? You know, so that's something that, you know, we've also, you know, tried to create resources that are outside of ASA in terms of providing our, you know, our database of more than 10,000 parents, 6,000 players, resources around, COVID. We have a unique opportunity to provide them with city specific information, updates from the health department, best practices towards not spreading the virus. All those things are ways that we've been trying to communicate with our participants during this time to just get us through this together, and as as healthy as possible.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
But yeah, I just that for me is been really empowering, right, and energizes me that everybody continues to just work together, right? Like, and Alexandria is really unique. You want to know what differentiates Alexandria from other communities. I feel like are things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It is a large number of people that interact in small subset communities to do whatever it takes to make sure that everybody in their sub community is healthy, right? Is in a good spot. And I think to that note, I've always felt like the city of Alexandria and Alexandria Soccer, ever since I came 9 years ago, has offered that. And whether you've been at ASA for 15 years or you just started, we hope that you feel that. And if you don't at any point, reach out to us. We want you to be supported. We want your child to have the best possible experience every time they play. And if there's anything we can do to adjust that, we're always hoping to get better. Our vision is to be the gold standard. So I think we continue to push towards that. But yeah, we're going to be back. We're going to be ready and we'll go back to the field. And I hope the next update we do, like this is in person back in our close quarters. But we definitely will be rolling out a lot of communication over the next few weeks as we prepare for the next season.
Absolutely. Katie and I have been talking about when we can finally do the show next to each other.
Yeah, it'll be a little smoother maybe. Although our cues are pretty good from virtually.
I've heard that if we, if things don't work out, we could start our show.
Yep, it's Plan B.
Hey, I mean, Katie, it's 3:59. You have a 4:00 call with our new website developer, which one other way we hope to make the experience for people gathering information about programming each season and updates related to COVID and our response there much easier.
Yep.
So you have about 10 seconds, but I know that you knew that when you have, I tend to be long-winded, that you extended.
I told them I might be a couple minutes late, but yeah, if you're still with us, sneak peek, the website, depending on how the next hour goes, might be live this weekend. If not, it'll be live next week. But the reason we did that, Tommy's right, is that we wanted to be able to communicate better with you. And so a big part of this is that it's very mobile friendly. So you'll be able to access information in a much easier and more concise way. So
you mean you don't like scrolling down the page for 10 minutes to find out when it starts?
I mean, you'll all be surprised.
We could start a Zing Fest here if anybody wants to chime in. We could do a second hour. I mean, this is all informative. Like I got the short end here because we didn't get to just have a banter session.
Yeah, yours was a business session.
Yeah. Why don't we just add a bonus here? Can we just invite in people too and do like roasts?
I mean,
invite people in?
No. We could arrange that, but not now.
That could be something.
Yeah. We could have some surprise guests though, just like
phone calls.
We could take calls. We could take calls. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Well,
all right, we gotta go. We're getting called out.
I do have to jump back in here to the workflow. That is one thing that I know everybody's balancing. We're always on. You're not really away from the office at any point. So
literally never away from the office right now.
yeah. So, but
thank you.
thank you both for continuing to share information with people through this platform, and hopefully one day I'll be welcome back for slightly more lighthearted conversation.
Yeah.
Yep. We can arrange that.
It was great information. Hopefully, Katie, we're gonna post this, right, and maybe cut it up into some clips so that people can see various specific bits of information. Yeah, I thought it was a great conversation. Hopefully, it provides some insight for everybody on what's to come over the next few weeks, couple months, as we get back on the field.
All right.
Hopefully soon.
I just got a little text here from my not co-worker, but co-working space partner, who is also my fiance, that the spouses need to start their own podcast.
Wow. Chris, just run the music. Just run the music.
Yeah. We get that?
What a show. What a show.
Oh gosh. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in.